News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, and I'll just get right to the point.
Yeah.
I want to wish you all a very happy National Pencil Day.
Right to the point, eh? Huh. Pretty subtle. Hey, now National Pencil Day is a day we can all get behind. Who doesn't use pencils? Pencils are vital. I use it every day in carpentry, Allan. So.
Well, I was just sitting there thinking about that for a second. I went, what an amazingly unsung hero of civilization change.
Funny you should say that, Allan, because Max and I were discussing that before the show, and he feels like the pencil needs to be shown a little appreciation. So
it needs some love.
In his
That's
deep dive, right, Max?
Deep cut.
Deep cut. He's going to talk a little bit about the history of the pencil.
Well, that's awesome. Good.
And it's much
we
more
need to do that.
It's much more riveting than you think.
No, it sounds interesting, actually. So that's a good one, Max. It's better than some of these weird holidays you bring us.
Well, I like this one.
And I don't know how exciting it's going to be. I mean, I don't know how you actually celebrate. What do? Buy a case of pencils and, I don't know, get a new pencil
Light them on
sharpener?
fire?
Something.
Find unique means?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be
We
burning
used to hook
lead.
them up to speaker wires, and never mind. That was a different age.
Okay, so so there we go. National Pencil Day is on the table. If you want to weigh in on any of that, or maybe even ask us about home improvement, or celebrate, some home improvement triumphs of your own, you can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. I think Max finally got the cameras going. I saw him scrambling over there a second ago. But the cameras are on, so if you want to watch the show, go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And if you scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, you'll see the post we've made. We made, of course, our must-have item of the week, which is actually coming in handy around the studio.
It is in use right now.
Also, though, for great moments in building history, Max, this is one of your discoveries. I got to give you credit on this. Coober Pedy.
Yep.
Never heard of it. That name means nothing to me, and it's spelled P-E-D-Y.
Yep.
And it's B instead of Cooper, because
It's
I was
Coober.
thinking it was Cooper instead of Coober.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
it's
Coober. So, think of the guy from Andy Griffith. Is that right? Oh, no, Goober, but close. But it's in Australia. You could say this is a community of modern Stone Age families, right, Max? I mean, this is this is going to be good. So this is basically a subterranean city. It's pretty interesting.
It is.
And there's a lot of other dynamics at play in there. So let's see. What do we got here? We've got this is an interesting conversation, Allan. You wanted to talk about the logistics of DIY.
Yes.
We
Very much so.
We tend to focus on how to do something and everything, but you can't do anything if you don't have the item that you're installing or and logistics become very important.
Well,
And,
it's kind of like having $1 million race car and forgetting a spark plug.
bingo. There you go. That's exactly it. So we've got a must-have item of the week. We've got follow-ups. We've got a lot going on today. Allan's week in review. We're not going to over tease because you know how that'll go. Allan will miss something. But before we get to any of that, I have something really stupid but I think it's pretty interesting. And I didn't warn Allan in advance. But Max, you were behind this effort. So my daughter said something pretty interesting to me the other day. She goes, I've been thinking about, because she's back home for a bit, and she's like she basically assigned all of us spirit animals. You ever heard of that?
Oh yeah.
She said my spirit animal would be a beaver because they're funny, they're hardworking, and they're carpenters. I said I can't, and plus maybe it explains why I love Buc-ee's so much.
They're I can see your logic.
Okay,
I'm not going to go any further. I'll just say I can see your logic. Yep.
So, but then Max said something interesting. What do we have spirit tools? That's what I was getting to. Do you have a tool that basically represents your personality perfectly? I thought I had a couple. I guess if I had to, I'd say maybe mine is the wood lathe. I don't know. That's something that, but I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe you just let that marinate in the back of your mind. Max, you had.
Oh, I have two that are. I have actually three tools that would pretty much characterize my career.
What is it? I'm just sort of curious.
You know, it's
a
funny.
Spirit tool sounds interesting if
Well,
people want to weigh in on that. So,
And here's where you get anamorphic because people have a tendency to name my tools for me.
oh yeah, you got Old Yellow.
I got Old Yeller, I got Smack, and I got Dexter.
Right.
And those three tools, I would say, pretty much sum up my career.
Those are all destructive tools, though.
Well, they are normally used to destroy things. You know, I got a big old 10-pound sledge. I got a great big, massive, and it's honestly called a wrecking bar.
Yeah.
And, of course, I have my shovel, which is designed to cut through roots.
Right.
And everybody named it Dexter, the murder shovel. 'Cause it looks like something you would see in a horror movie. And basically, because these things were designed to absolutely destroy things, the flip side is, wow, we built this frame and it needs to be 2 inches over to the left.
See,
Well, go get me a block and go get me Smack, and I'll show you how to move an entire building frame 2 inches to the left without having to go to crane. So, all of my tools, while I'm going to say are designed for destruction,
yeah.
they are actually used to solve a myriad amount of problems.
See, now this is very interesting. I knew we'd get him on this one, Max, because here's the other dynamic. Now, as an outside observer, I've been around Allan when he can just give blunt, brutal truths to people, and it might come across as very harsh. But sometimes when because I've seen you at conventions, Allan.
Oh, yeah.
So, but sometimes, or giving somebody some painful information about their ridiculous idea for a home improvement project, like, no, that's not going to work. Here's why it's not going to work, and here's why if you do that, you're going to burn your house down.
Yep.
Well, you need that kind of person in your life. You need somebody that will speak harsh truths, but in the end, good results come of that. So it's the same thing with your pry bars and with your sledgehammer and everything. Okay, it might be a little harsh at first, but the end results will be something that's well done. So I could see that being your spirit tools, man.
Well, the name of the game is not. All right, we have all these wonderful adages about it's getting there, it's doing it. No, it's not. It is production.
Yeah.
When you and I live in a world that is completely unlike the rest of the world, of thought does not equal action. You can talk about it all day.
Boom.
Basically, what you and I end up doing, and this is kind of one of those little life lessons. So everybody grab your pencil. Here we go. There's your throwback, Max. It is all about production.
Right.
And what I call this is ant mentality. Because you've always seen the Discovery Channel thing where you got the 25 little bitty tiny ants trying to haul the giant grasshopper back to the nest, right? And and they struggle and struggle and struggle, but eventually they get it there, because if they don't, they're going to starve.
Right.
So motivation, people, it's production. If you're going to do something, be prepared to go through the planning stage.
Right.
Be prepared to go through the acquisition stage, and be prepared to finish, because that's the hard part for the average homeowner.
The last 10% of a job is the work, because it's like you're almost
Oh, my
done.
gosh.
You're actually using the thing in it, but
Half
gotta
of your
finish it,
career,
yeah.
and at least 3/4 of my career, is the last 20% of almost everybody else's project.
So it's the final countdown?
yeah,
It is.
there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Max, that's your walk-on music, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I knew we'd get Allan into this one. Max, do you have a thought about what your spirit tool might be?
Well, I have certain things. I'm gonna do the one that's just the immediate, like, deep fake. Like, mine would probably be, if we had to qualify weapons as tools, mine would probably be a sword, because I've always had a love of swordsmanship and being a knight and fencing and stuff like that. But if I had to choose a tool, the one that comes to my mind most of all is the like the razor blade, like like the snap on, snap off razor blade. Like and the reason being is because I'm a fan of this anime called Attack on Titan, and they all have these weapons that look just like giant razor blades.
Me too.
But I have to think about that a little bit more because I'm still kind of stumped on that question.
Well, that's out on the table, and I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, I really think there's...
and actually support of what you just said, shockingly, I have got a box cutter I've had for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, it is just the ancient, good old-fashioned, metal-sided, cheap box cutter, and that tool has been on my holster for no lie, 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, one of the most... well, we get in weird places, Joe. We're up on the ladder. We're under something. We're in something. And you get down in there and you need to shave off this one tiny little bit, or you need to tap something, or that's where those multi-tools and little hand tools come in so handy.
I just... okay, I'm gonna maybe change my vote. Max, mine might be a razor knife too, because literally I use my razor knife every day.
Constantly.
I just shaved a 2x4 yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I was up on a ladder. I was putting a rafter. There was one little edge that was wrong. I took my razor knife out and I shaved that baby down.
Yep.
And didn't have to go down and saw anything. So okay. So portable and effective and cutting.
Yes.
There we go. All right, well, that's out there on the table. We want to know what your spirit tool is and why. So, all right, pretty good start to the show, you guys. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hear all about the history of the pencil.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I could get a fish for a 5-cent worm.
Oh, you're paying way too much for worms, man. Who's your worm guy?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a dated reference. I think 5 cents for a worm is pretty good these days, right?
No, that's a good price. I got news for you.
Creed's just a cheapskate. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
And Allan's my worm guy.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep,
That's
yep.
weird. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline. Tell us where you get your worms supplied from.
Absolutely.
You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. And, if you've got worms, send us pictures. I don't care. Maybe
No.
Yeah.
If your dog's got worms, you gotta be careful how you frame that.
Okay. There's a lot on the table today. We are, among other things, we are interested in hearing what your spirit tool is. Like we've all been weighing in on different ones. Mine is the wood lathe. Allan is tools of destruction, like a sledgehammer, his yellow pry bar, and whatever. Max is a razor knife. What do you got, Max?
Well, Angel on the text line actually said, "Ooh, spirit tools. Crafting wise would be a cordless glue gun. DIY would be an even tie between a sawzall and sledgehammer."
A glue gun. Now that's interesting. Bringing things together. Okay.
And I wanted to kind of add to the audience, just to let them know that with regards to the spirit tool, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most practical one, but the one that speaks to you and your sensibilities.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe it reflects your personality, so.
Well, the most used tool in my entire truck is the micro flat blade screwdriver. I use that thing at least 6 times a day for things that have nothing to do with being a screwdriver.
I was about to say, you probably use it in a way that's not.
It's a tiny little pry bar. It's how to get through a little bit of paint. It's how to get the edge off of some drywall that got stuck. It's an amazing tool.
Also, I just want to say that baseball is back, so I have an extra spring in my step, Allan. Life always feels better when baseball's going.
Yeah,
on,
I know, because then we get to watch your spirit get crushed over the year.
All right, Max. Well, we're going to throw it to you, man. So,
And now, a deep cut with Maximilian.
if you're just tuning in, Max, let us know. Sorry, I cut in on your soundbite, Max.
It's this Fruit Ninja.
Well, it just goes on and on. Anyway, but Max told us that today is National Pencil Day. They could probably use a zippier title, but whatever. It gets the job done.
Hey, it's a pencil.
And there's a significance behind this date, and that's because today is the anniversary of when a man by the name of Hyman Lipman patented the first a modern pencil that actually had an eraser attached to it.
Oh,
which is pretty.
The
which is pretty
eraser.
interesting.
Okay. Well, we've been wondering about the history of the pencil, Max. It probably goes way back, I'm sure.
And so the patent itself goes back to 1858. However, this brings us way back to, let's first discuss the 1st century BC, where, back in the day, the Romans used the stylus or they used brushes of camel hair. But in the 1st century BC, a Greek poet by the name of Philip of Thessaloniki wrote about leaden wooden instruments. And so that's the first vague mention of it. However, it's not until the 16th century that we begin to discuss the idea of graphite, which is obviously very key with regards to the history of the pencil. This is where we first start. And this takes us back to 1565 in an area near Keswick, England. And there's this old legend that says a storm uprooted a tree, and there clinging to the tree roots was a shiny black substance called graphite. And that's because graphite is just a crystallized form of carbon. And so I imagine maybe when it's deep underground like that, where tree roots are, it's more conducive for, producing graphite.
It's under pressure, yes.
Maybe somebody sat on it and it turned their pants all black and they said, hey, wait a minute.
And this kind of brings us to, why do we call it lead? Well, it's a misconception because, it's obviously always been graphite, but that's because people would use the graphite itself comes from the Greek term graphene, which means to write. And then other people would call it a plumbago, which is the Latin word for lead, i.e. plumbus, or they would call it black lead. And so that's where the connotation of calling graphite lead comes from.
Oh, I didn't know that. I always thought it was lead. I grew up, that's why they said don't put the pencil in your mouth. So,
That's just plain gross anyway. So
okay.
it doesn't have to be
well,
lead.
when you're a kid.
Yep.
And then so this is where things get interesting too, it's when we discuss the origins of where did we get the idea of the eraser, because we're trying to talk about where the marriage of the eraser and pencil came from. And so the origins of the eraser itself go back to 1770, whereas prior to that, people might use balled up lumps of old bread to kind of erase their mistakes. I know that's kind of weird.
Really? That's what they use?
Slightly abrasive and removed the mark. Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't it moldy? And
probably.
Okay.
So was the paper.
Yeah. All right.
And then so in
It's a long, rich history.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then in 1770, a clergyman/chemist by the name of Joseph Priestley noticed that this gum harvested from trees in South America would be perfect for removing pencil marks, i.e. rubber.
There we go.
Once again, another use.
Hey. Oh, go ahead, Max.
And then obviously, we get to Hyman Littman, who in 1858 married the two concepts. But then you have the idea of where did we get the idea of putting wood around the area? Well, it goes back a little. That goes back. But what did you wanted to say before I get to that?
I was curious that you just almost answered my question. I was wondering, were they just grabbing a big chunk of graphite and just drawing? So, in other words, did it get all over their fingers and stuff, or they wrap it in a cloth?
They initially wrapped it in string, but, eventually they migrated to inserting it into a tube.
Okay, now we're talking.
And so he was, I believe, there was a Swiss naturalist by the name of Konrad Gessner who showed him drawing with a piece of graphite inside of a wooden tube. But back in the day, the wood that they used was fairly crude. It wasn't necessarily the best quality. And so to mask that mistake, they would paint it yellow. And that goes back to 1889's World's Fair in Paris, where an Austro-Hungarian pencil company unveiled a new luxury pencil. And it was painted yellow. And it was called the Koh-i-Noor, which was the name of a giant diamond, the largest diamond in the world. And so it's yep, we represent the gold standard of pencils.
And that's pretty much the modern pencil right there, right?
And then there's the Bernacotti pencil.
Okay, what's that?
You got to go back to 1560 to a lovely Italian couple who started using juniper branches hollowed out, stuffed with graphite, and they made their pencil was flat and wide. Sound familiar?
Yeah, it sounds like what I use every day.
It's a contractor's pencil. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you want to
kept it from rolling off.
And you want a connection to Tennessee? One of the best woods that they use for creating pencils started back in 1812 was the eastern red cedar trees in Tennessee.
Yep.
And it was a pencil manufacturer by the name of William Monroe.
Because pencils are pretty soft woods. I mean, they have to be. You don't want a big.
No, they got to grind
You don't need
down.
an oak pencil or anything. So yeah. So cedar is a very soft wood. So.
Yeah, and so the finest pencils wouldn't be painted yellow. And so if you have like a really nice quality wood, like cedar, you might leave it exposed. You might leave it naked. And so it might also have like a really nice smell to it too. But in closing, I would like to add some really interesting stats about the pencil itself. The pencil, single pencil itself can write up to 45,000 words.
I think that depends who's writing the word. If you're real heavy-handed, right?
It depends, but on average, if you attach it to a consistent pressure, it'll that little bit of pencil, that little bit of graphite will last a pretty good while.
Hold on, Matt. How many words are in an average novel? Like 100,000?
About 100,000.
Okay, so you could write half of a book with one pencil.
2 pencils, 2 pencils and a stub.
Not bad.
You could knock out a novel.
All right, Max.
And then another interesting thing, you'd appreciate this, Joe, is Johnny Carson had very special pencils because back in the day, he would love to fiddle with his pencils while he's like doing his show. And to avoid any onset accidents, these pencils would actually be made with erasers on both ends.
Now, that's interesting. I'm going to have to go back on YouTube and look because you always saw him tapping the pencil or flipping it or whatever and
throwing it.
Now I'm going to have to do a freeze frame and see that there was the double edge because he'd be messing up those cheesy, polyester suits if he didn't. If he had
those were fine, high quality polyester suits in those days, baby.
All right, well, go ahead, man.
And then one more thing is a single pencil could write up to 45 miles, a line measuring up to 45 miles.
Really? Okay.
Again, a thin, evenly pressured. It's not actual use.
Yeah, we gotta because I burned through a car. Well, now carpentry, you're drawing on to 2x4s and things like that.
That's not what they're doing.
Okay, I would love to know if anybody out there has ever tested that theory. Could you draw 45,000 words? Could you draw a 45-mile line? I don't know. All right, well, Max, there was a lot more to that history than I would have thought.
And there's still more, but that's fine. That's more of a discussion for off air.
Yeah, this isn't pencil talk radio. This is tool talk radio. So, okay, so just to recap, because we got a lot to get to today.
Yep.
But just to recap, we would love to know what your spirit tool is out there. That's out on the table. Let us know. I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. Angel's already weighed in.
Oh, yeah.
We've already weighed in. We would love to know what you think. Get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. Allan, let's tee this up, and then we'll get to it when we come back. But what do we, in your week in review, it sounds like it's kind of a wide variety, right?
A little ranging of a lot of, I'm going to redo that word, not arranging, a lot of rearranging.
Okay, rearranging.
A lot of rearranging this week.
Okay, reconfiguring. So, all right. So we'll be getting to that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You have no skills and you're a loser!
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I wonder if Squidward is Allan's spirit animated character.
Spirit fish.
Spirit fish. Spirit squid.
Squidward might get invited to dinner.
Okay, there you go. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. And when we say invited to dinner, we know what that means.
As a guest.
Yeah, exactly.
Central guest. Yeah.
I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We'd love to hear from you. We want to know there's a few things out on the table. We are curious what your spirit tool would be. If you're just tuning in, we've already referenced what our tools would be. Basically tools that maybe reflect your personality and maybe are meaningful to you. Or, I think we know what a spirit tool. I don't think we have to over-explain that. Also, Max gave us a really in-depth history of the pencil because today is National Pencil Day. And if you're out there celebrating, we'd love to know what festivities you've got going on to celebrate National Pencil Day. I mean, it's a pretty It's a pretty wide-ranging and universe. Maybe you go buy a pack of colored pencils and make some art.
Say, hey, I'm all about the pencil. The pencil is just one of those really unsung heroes of civilization because it really is responsible for a lot of great stuff.
If you're a carpenter, I'm sure you use it every day.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So, you know who I bet uses pencils a lot? Our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. You have to mark off where the ductwork is going.
Oh,
you have to do, you have to make your calculations and things like that. And but he's also pretty high tech, let's face it. They deal with train systems, they deal with the Remy Halo systems. They're always dealing with the cutting edge of HVAC. One of the things that sets Brown Refrigeration apart is their commitment to always being in touch with the latest technology and always really anticipating 5 or 10 years ahead of what's coming, so that when they install a system or when they start thinking about what you're going to need down the road, they're already ahead of the curve. They're already in tune with the latest technology. They have a great business culture over there as well. They're all about customer service and making sure that they answer their phones, which is a big deal, and that they connect with their clients. So that's a huge thing because HVAC company, there's a relationship there, just like you have a relationship with your favorite mechanic. Because you're going to want them out there maybe, I don't know, once or twice a year to do some preventative maintenance and to look over your system and give it a tune-up. And that's one of the things we just love about Brown Refrigeration. They're interactive. They have a rock-solid business culture. Like we said, Larry Brown's been in this game for over 40 years. This is his passion. This is what they do. And I can't think of a more important system in your home than your HVAC system. So we love the folks over at Brown Refrigeration. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. All right, Allan, I didn't warn you about and I don't even know if this is you know what? I'm going to put a pin in this. I got a question for you when we come back from the break, but let's find out what you did this week. So.
Oh, the humanity.
It didn't sound like it was that horrifying, or maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it depends on your point of view.
Okay.
All right, I get a call from a landowner that I've done a lot of work for in the past, and we're all getting a little older.
Yeah.
So, a couple of years ago, they had decided what we're going to do is we're going to build a really interesting raised bed garden.
Okay, which is
kind of cool, very admirable.
No, what is a raised bed garden?
Well, a raised bed garden is anything above ground. So we're gonna start at ground level. We're gonna put some walls up, fill it up with dirt, and we're gonna garden a little bit elevated, so you're not down on the ground on your knees trying to take care of this stuff.
Ah, gotcha.
And now the one thing they did do right was they went and got a lot of cinder blocks.
Cheap, easy to build with.
Easy to move around, all that kind of stuff.
Like Legos, just stack them up.
And then horribly, they had an attack of Old English Maze syndrome and built a whole lot of really cute, utterly and completely useless designs and beds.
So basically, they grabbed a big truckload of cinder blocks and just started putting them places.
And just
without thought.
It was cute, but there was no way they were going to grow anything because they didn't take into consideration drainage, light, weeds, trees, shading. So, I was looking at it and she's like, okay, so last year this thing killed us. What's wrong? And I said, well, the one right thing you did was you bought cinder blocks.
Yeah.
And then she goes, well, what else? And I'm like, no, that was it. That was it. So we spent an entire day doing nothing but removing all the cinder blocks and honestly got in there with a lawnmower and had to mow her garden. It was just that bad. It was that bad.
Oh, boy.
Now, this is where I'm going to advocate. If you have got uncolored cardboard,
Okay,
and everybody's got packing boxes and stuff.
I always wind up with a bunch. Yeah.
Right. I don't mean the glossy, high gloss, I'm trying to sell you something on the side kind of things, but packing boxes. You know what I'm talking about.
Brown cardboard. Yep.
So what we ended up doing was honestly sitting around and goofing off for about an hour, to see how the sun was going to hit the garden, how it was going to lay out, and going through what does she actually want to grow.
Bingo. Yeah.
And, well, I would like to do this or I'd like to do that. And I've got these left over. And, and the funny thing is, once we kind of sketched it out a little bit, once again, your pencil, Max, we sketched it out just a little bit. And I said, all right, how does that look to you? Oh, that looks great. All right. Within an hour of having it sketched out, what we did was, and guys, this is so you can replace that plastic netting and all the plastics that people keep putting in their gardens.
Oh, I didn't know people put plastic in there.
Well, look at your weed netting and all that kind of stuff. It's all plastic.
You're looking at me as though I know anything about gardening.
I'm talking to a guy that's
speaking a
allergic to
foreign
dirt.
language right now. So,
But for the people that have been to the big box stores, there's acres and acres of all kinds of plastics you can put down in your garden to keep the weeds down. Don't use the plastics. It doesn't go anywhere. It just breaks down into microplastics and causes problems.
Yeah.
I greatly prefer cardboard.
Okay, I was wondering where the cardboard comes in, but now I think I get it.
So we laid the cardboard out in the shape of where the beds were now going to go.
Oh, this is your template principle. You're always big into that.
And then, you walk around it and everybody went, okay, we can get the lawnmower in here for the walking areas. We can do this. We can do that. All right. We like this. All right. Within an hour of having the cardboard down, the cinder block walls were back up on top of the cardboard. We're leaving the cardboard down so it can decay naturally and be a weed barrier. And we started reloading the dirt, got everything back in, got it all stacked up. And within about 3 hours, this disaster of a garden turned into, birds singing, everybody happy.
I have to ask from the layman's perspective, Allan, how does cardboard work even though it breaks down in protecting against weeds? Because if it breaks down, wouldn't you think that it would corrode the barrier between the two areas?
That's the point.
Oh, that is the point.
That is the point. That is the entire point, that we are just giving a plant fiber back to the dirt. What'll happen is, it's going to provide a sun barrier. And it is under the soil that we put on there. So it's not blowing off. It's under the cinder blocks. It's trapped under there. And it's not going to decay in a week. That cardboard's going to down. It's going to be down there for a minute. So any of your everyday grassy type weeds, your dandelions and stuff like that, are not going to grow through it. Now, if you've got privet or blackberry or some of the really pervasive things, they'll poke their way through, but then you can deal with them as they pop up.
Right.
Whether it's a weed killer, you're going to dig them out or whatever you're going to do. But then it just cuts down on so much of the work you've got to do. And the number one thing I want to point out in any of these jobs is the first thing you've got to consider is you.
Yeah.
And
how are you going to use this?
Well, it's not unknown that I'm a cyborg. I've got a few metal parts here and there, and I don't move like I used to.
Right.
So when I start looking at these projects, I start looking at what's the biggest bang for my buck I can get, and how do I make it even easier on me?
You know what? Yeah.
In the next 2 weeks, I got an exciting project that I can't wait to bring, because I'm going to be taking pictures of this. We're going to move a giant chicken coop. Chickens are a big thing now, and laying hens. And I got another client that's got kind of a ragtag thing put together, and I went, no.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this for the humans. The chickens will get the benefit, but it's not built for the human to take advantage. Which brings me immediately to the second part of my week.
Okay.
Find the wire. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Hunt.
All right. This is 30 years of stupid, big time. You just don't know what those previous homeowners did. You don't know what they buried. And there's nothing like finding out that of light you have in your front yard is being run on an unprotected extension cord run underground.
Oh. Very interesting. Yeah. That's
yeah. We had
that's
to find,
a big swing and a miss. So
yeah. Oh, Yeah, we had to find one of those because they're like, well, the light keeps going in and out, and it keeps throwing the breaker, and the light keeps going in and out, and it keeps throwing the breaker. It's like, all right, so we start digging around this lamp. This is another property. We start digging around it, and ooh, there's a wire there.
Okay, well, we'll find out the shocking results of what happened with Allan this week when we come back. So, all right, wow, that's a cliffhanger. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I got them a toaster. They called off the wedding and gave the toaster back to me. I tried to return the toaster to the store, and they said they no longer sold that kind of toaster. So now my house has got 2 toasters.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
That's why I always wait to the day before the wedding to do my shopping. You never know, Allan, and you don't want to wind up with 2 toasters.
How about if it's just cash?
Cash works. Cash is the best.
You don't get cash back.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
I don't mean to drag this on too long, but I'm just reminded too of this great Phil Henry bit with this guy named Lloyd Bonafide who's like, someone got married recently and the marriage didn't work out, so I want my cordless drill back.
Okay, we'll have to talk. Yeah, that's a classic, but it would take too long to unpack here. But yeah, thanks Max for sidetracking that. But
You're welcome.
Phil Henry rocks. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. There's a few things on the table. First of all, we want to know what your spirit tool would be. We've been talking about that. Today is National Pencil Day, and it's really an important. I mean, who hasn't used a pencil? Mm-hmm. We would love to know how you're celebrating out there. If you have any, of course, home improvement comments or questions, we'd love to hear from you about that as well. And of course, baseball season's kicked off, so we're all feeling good around here. I know Allan is super excited.
No, you feel good. The rest of us are just waiting on you to get, trashed and disappointed over the year.
And then we'll feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And Allan left us hanging with a cliffhanger about his week in review. Before we find out what happened, Allan, because it sounds like there was live wires, electrical dangers, and things like that. But you said something before in the first part of your week in review that I wanted to comment on, because you said that you rearranged somebody's. They basically had cinder blocks. They had raised planters. That's what they're called.
Raised bed garden.
And it seems like you were making a bigger deal out of this than it should. However, I don't think so. Like, somebody might go, oh my gosh, you're making cardboard templates. You're doing this. You're doing whatever. One thing you said really struck home to me. You said, we have to make sure the lawnmower fits in between these things.
Yes.
That's a very easy thing to forget. I had a perfect example of this last week. I had a truckload of plywood delivered to the job site that I'm at, which basically they you know how that is. They come in, they have the forklift, they deliver a big pallet of plywood. Well, the guy goes, "Where do you want it?" And I go, "Oh, just put it right there." And I had my son there working with me that day, and he was helping me move because we had to move it into position.
Right.
Well, if I'd have given it 2 seconds of thought, I could have had him drop it in a spot where I wouldn't have had to do anything. Like, I didn't even think. I was just like, he delivered it, and we had to, because I figured I'd have to move it eventually. But the other thing was, if I'd have had him move it 1 foot over, it would basically what happened was I had to move this plywood. My son and I had to move 28 sheets of plywood twice.
Right.
Because I didn't just have that simple thought. I just said, put it over there. I was looking at other things.
Right.
I wasn't worried about it. And so sometimes it's easzy to overlook the obvious in a situation like that. And these little things, visualizing with a piece of cardboard is actually super helpful.
Well, I throw in after decades of experience of, oh, yeah, just set it down anywhere. All right, let's get the tote line together. And that's, you could have had it dropped off. Sometimes just a foot closer can make all the difference in the world to you the next day when you get to it.
Well, at the moment that the plywood was being delivered, I didn't care about that. I was dealing with something else. I just said, stick it over there. If I'd have taken 3 seconds to go, wait a minute, let me move this 2x4 that's in the way and then drop it there. I would have saved myself a good 30 minutes of work.
Easy.
So,
So, and these are just little things. And the thing I'm pointing out about like the garden, because right now it is definitely time to get out and play on the patio.
Right.
People are going to be looking at their fire pits and goldfish ponds. And, it's really a big landscaping time of the year. And I always throw in, start at the fact you're a human. And you only
Max.
bend so many different directions, and you can only reach so far. And I just run into this constantly all season long where you didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we put it right there, but it's a foot just out of reach.
Right.
That kind of reminds me of a philosophy that I have where it's a big mess is a bunch of smaller messes that have been allowed to accumulate.
That's a good point, yeah.
And that is exactly what happens. That is exactly what happens because, we could put these here, and then we're going to put this in front of it. And then, we haven't touched that in a while, so we're going to add this onto it. And you really aggravate yourself out of enjoying what you set out, what you paid for.
Right.
You paid for this. You should be able to enjoy it. And, that kind of awkwardly segues back to the front light fixture we were working on a property. It's one of those by the ways.
Right.
I was there looking at something else, and then you get the, by the way, do you know what could be wrong with this? Because it goes in and goes out and goes in and goes out. And we were thinking about maybe getting something solar to take its place. And I'm, that's a great idea. Let's go take a look and see what you got. And we get out there, and of course, it's a nice light fixture. It's in the center of the yard. It's very decorative. It's very Narnia, if you want.
Oh,
It's
cool.
kind of, it's kind of an old English looking thing. And we're sitting there looking at it, and it's on a little base. It's even got the little concrete base under there. And I'm like, that's awesome. So the power issue has got to be, and I said, what's probably happened is the protective cover, the PVC or the conduit that it's in, has probably gotten bumped or moved. So we start digging down, and what we find is an extension cord. And it's like,
So this is another 30 years of stupid situation. Somebody buried, and they plugged it in with an extension cord and then buried it.
Yeah.
And that failed somehow?
Yeah, about
Wow.
a foot deep because,
Imagine that.
now it's soaked in water. It's finally, this was probably 15 years ago, and I know it was an external high-quality extension cord, but it wasn't designed to be buried in soil.
I'm just thinking of the possible effects of that. So it's getting soaked with water.
Yeah.
You got it's going to fail at some point. But
It's
the
failing.
question is, I guess what I'm wondering is, if it was wet and you were out there in bare feet, could you get zapped?
And you touch that pole, you might create a short circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
you could get popped. Yeah. So, so I'm just kind of like,
At least you saw where the problem was.
well, let's start digging. And then we go back, and of course, we're trying to figure out, all right, where is it coming from?
Yeah. Where did this originate? So this sounds a lot like Clark Griswold, man.
Well,
So-
the worst part is halfway down the side of the house is where you find out where they plugged in the other extension cord to get it around to the back of the house where the socket was. And you're just like, oh my gosh. So, bless their hearts. Now they have a trench dug up through their yard. And the good news is, nobody got zapped. Nobody got hurt. We found it. But all the years of living there, behind the bush on the back of the house was a properly installed external wall socket. And they had just come right out of that, dug down, and run an high-quality external extension cord all the way down the side of the house, out across the front yard, into the lamp.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity to, we say this quite often.
Yep.
It's not a bad idea, especially if you're a new homeowner, just at least once or twice a year, just walk around your entire house
and look for
see
weird
what
stuff.
happened, see what's going on out there. I mean, that would have explained a lot if they said, where is this cord going? It's going into the ground. That seems odd.
Well, It was kind of behind a bush, and nobody had ever really noticed it. They'd only lived there a few years and, really hadn't, cut the bush back or anything. And so happily, disaster averted, no fires, nobody got shocked or anything. But just, oh, my goodness, people, please don't do stuff like that. Oh, my gosh. I mean, I get upset enough when I find extension cords draped through people's attics.
Right. Okay.
This was actually exposed to water and the elements. And just don't do it.
Okay. Well, not a bad week in review. Nobody died. You actually fixed up. You got
saved the day a few times.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, let me tell you about my week, Alan.
Here
Let's
you
shift
go.
gears. So, folks, if you're new to Tool Talk Radio, you should know that for the last month, we have two. I don't want people to think that we're, whatever. Whatever. We have two bathrooms. The downstairs sink has been clogged for a month.
Right.
Okay, and I'm not talking about the sink. This is beyond the sink. The sink drain is clear. This is into the pipe where the sink drain. Alan, I have tried everything.
Right.
I've tried, and it's still, and it's killing me. My wife is like, okay, well, you think maybe it's time to call like a professional? I said no. Not till I've exhausted every idea, and I've got one more last-ditch idea that I want to throw at you when we come back from the break. So you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. You're going to hear my harebrained idea when we come back.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. Sorry, I think I yelled that one. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration
You're just
Studios.
excited because it's baseball.
I am. You're not lying, Max. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. You can also watch the show today. We have the cameras on, and you can go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you to go, while you're on social media, scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, like the page and share the page, and check out the posts we've made over there, including our great moments in building history, which we'll get to shortly, all about a little bizarre community. Well, I don't want to say bizarre, unusual community way in the outback of Australia called Coober Pedy.
Isn't Australia just weird anyways?
They're weird. Yeah, we love the Australians, but they march to their own. And I'll tell you,
they're better than the Scottish.
They're tough.
Oh, wow. We're going to start that early, aren't we?
Yeah.
My goodness.
So anyway, we have a lot on the table. And of course, today is National Pencil Day. So Max gave us a nice history of the pencil, and we would love to know how you're celebrating this great holiday. You know? So, Allan, for people that are just tuning in, I've been regaling you with my troubles of my clogged sink that I've had for the last month. Partly, a normal person would have just called whoever you call for this.
Right. They're called
to get
plumbers.
it fixed.
They're called plumbers. Right.
And my wife's kind of reached her limit with this because anyway, we have to use the other bathroom and all the other stuff. But until I feel like I've exhausted every possible approach, I don't want to call somebody, and I want to make sure I've tried this myself. So I have 3 different size sinks, or what do you call it, snakes that you can use for drains. I have a 50-foot really heavy duty one. I have a 12-foot one, and then I have like about a 10-foot one that fits on a drill. None of those worked. I've tried chemicals, and folks, this isn't in the sink. This is in the wall. I've taken all the pipes out, and I'm going straight to the Okay, so then I came up with the idea of what if I try to vacuum it out with a shop vac, which seems to be work. I took the drain, the shop vac, put it right up to there. It created a really tight seal and vacuumed away. And there was a lot of sludgy stuff that came out.
Right.
I put the pipe on and it was still clogged. So I had a question for you, Allan. If you notice, folks, if you ever look around your house, you will notice that you have vent pipes on the roof of your home.
You do?
And those are venting, because if you were to just run water into a drain, there's going to be air buildup. It might not even drain properly, right? So that vent allows the air to move. Well, here's what I was wondering. Maybe it's a two-pronged approach, Alan. What if I got a stronger shop vac? I know they make 6 horsepower ones. And what if I got up on the roof and temporarily taped shut the vent pipe that's above for the sink, and then the sink that's directly above ours? If I taped off the little drain hole and sealed that up, would that, in other words, give me a better shot at it? So
I just see Tim the Toolman Taylor right now.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if you're vacuuming and you're sucking in air from the vent, that's defeating the point. I'm trying to vacuum out whatever is blocking the line, and maybe that's where I'm running into problems. Is this a foolhardy quest, or is there something to this?
You're half right.
Okay.
You're half right. Okay. What we're worried about are the connecting lines that can feed air in.
Mm-hmm.
So the sink above to the sink below, they're probably on the same line.
They are. I've looked.
Okay.
Yeah.
So blocking up so that you're not bringing in air from the other bathroom,
right?
Not a bad idea. Okay. The vent pipe on the top of your house is probably on the other side of your problem.
What do you mean?
Well, AKA that vent pipe is mostly methane gas from your main.
Right.
So
yeah, because that goes straight into the main line.
Right. So that pretty much has nothing to do with where your problem is.
Okay.
Your problem is going to be within 6 feet of that sink.
Right.
So it's going to be somewhere in the connection that gets to the main. So capping off the top really isn't going to make any difference.
But the sink above might make a difference?
The sink above probably will make a difference.
Okay.
Because now you already told me you got stuff out the first time you used the shop vac.
Yeah, I feel like there was whatever sludgy, gross stuff was in there, a lot of it came out. I feel like there's a piece of plastic or something.
Well, all right. I happen to know the history of your house. So the fact
there's
that
been some unique owners of this house.
Let's just say there could be dismembered Barbie doll parts in your line. You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Your house has an unusual history.
Right.
Most houses I usually say have 30 years of stupid. You got a good 60 cooking.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because you've had.
My house is 70 years old, and we've had multiple owners. I've learned a little bit about them. And
you've had unusual owners.
Yeah.
Your house is probably more infamous than many other houses in the area.
Okay.
It's
but
well known.
Now, I think the shop vac I'm currently using is only about 2 horsepower. So if I get up to a big 6, maybe I'll even rent one. Do you think that could be?
Well, I think it's more about closing off
all the other
the overflow vent upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to stuff a towel in that one, close the vent, just basically
Put
make sure that you're not getting, that you're not sucking in air up the line, because we want it to put pressure below. Because I'm positive what you have in the line is going to be something plastic.
Yeah, it sure seems like it. The chemicals aren't hurting it at all. So
yeah, it's going to be a little piece of cellophane. It's going to be a toothpaste cap. It's going to be something that went down there 30 years ago, and it's now accumulated enough hair and sludge that it's got your pipe blocked.
I mean, you could always just modify your vac where you have like a Formula One engine with a pneumatic valve spring, stuff like that.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, how much could you actually do before it starts pulling in stuff from the main line or whatever?
Well, you could care less because there's nothing in the main line.
There shouldn't be, in theory.
Right.
That should all be down the drain.
Unless one of the properties I work on, in which case there could be entire bed sheets.
Right.
Patrick wanted to add from the text line his own little bit words of wisdom and everything, or rather I'd say words of caution.
Okay.
He said methane gas could blow up when it goes through the vacuum electric motor.
Oh, okay, Patrick. That's a very good point.
Yeah, that's why we don't want to set a fire.
And I don't want to suddenly create some sort of weird, where I'm...
Right. What we're worried about is just the suction in that first 5 feet right there. Yeah, we want to stay out of the main. We want to stay out of the methane. We don't want to create the Hindenburg in your bathroom.
Yeah, and I don't want to read. I don't want my obituary to read that he died blowing. He blew up in the bathroom vacuuming up methane gas. It's not going to look good.
That's
in
not
the
going to look
history
good on a
books.
resume.
No.
No, it's not going to look good on your resume.
It also isn't going to look good for the insurance policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if we give it a little more suction, we
Okay.
can see if we can get it. Whatever that last little piece is, to
There's
move
something just okay.
or we can give it another shot with the about 10-foot or 15-foot snake,
Right.
and see if we can actually get a hold of whatever is actually blocking that.
Okay, that sounds good. So, all right, hey, shifting gears, Alan. So I'll keep you posted, and it's not going to be long before something drastic happens because this is probably about the last weekend my wife's going to put up with this.
She's not going to tolerate you too much longer.
But I mean, it just kills me. If it's something I think I can do myself, I'm going to.
I understand.
Okay, so we should update people. For the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been talking about this invasive species, the Bradford pear tree, which has those white blooms, right? Which they're going to be going away soon. So a Bradford pear is going to look just like any other tree. But these are considered an invasive species. They grow really fast. They're brittle, you said, so they break a lot. But these have now been banned in many states. Are they banned in Tennessee, or are they getting ready to be banned?
They are off the. They're off the list of anything we want you to plant.
Okay, because Alan, you and I, a couple weeks ago, we drove to Tupelo.
Yeah.
And we were just happened to know. I said, Alan, I'm not seeing a whole lot of these Bradford pears along the road here. In fact, I think I saw 1 or 2 the whole trip. So Mississippi doesn't seem to. I guess they learned their lesson with the kudzu of what not to plant.
They got enough invasive species.
How do you actually ban a plant, and how do you enforce that, I suppose, and what does that look like? Do they just, I mean...
Well, the Department of Agriculture in each state and across the nation have lists of things that they'd like to see you doing and list of things they'd like to see you not doing.
Okay.
And in certain states, they're even going so far as to saying... if you see it, cut it down.
That's what I was waiting. Do you got to start cutting these babies down?
Well, certain states are even offering tree exchange programs. if you'll cut down the Bradford pear, we'll give you a native tree to put in its place.
Okay.
So if you'll get rid of this thing, and I'm not going to say the tree's completely useless. It is a fruit tree. It is a fruit wood. So, my advice is to all of my fellow barbecuers out there,
call them up and they'll...
do your neighborhood and your environment a friendly, and cook something.
Okay. All right. We'll be following these developments because the story's not over.
Oh, no.
You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
When my new apprentice arrives, he will take care of you.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Just use the force. That's how you get the clog out.
Maybe. I wish I could just beam that thing out of there. But it's always important to have a competent apprentice at your disposal. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Like Patrick's been doing. He's got some more advice for me, Max, with my drain clog.
He does indeed. He just said go to your big box store and rent a snake camera.
Now,
Or as Allan
Excellent
calls it,
idea.
an endoscope.
That's something I should have done a while. I didn't know you could do that. So, Pat, I'm definitely going to do that. That sounds great, man. So, I'm going to be curious what that looks like. I'm assuming it's waterproof, right, Allan? And
Yeah, they're designed to go places that are wet. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, Patrick, I will keep you posted, and thanks for that. Thanks for that good advice. So, hey, in a minute, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. I'm really looking forward to that discussion. Before we do that, though, let's talk about our good buddy Jay Hill from Big M Roofing and Remodeling. You talk about a guy that is laser focused on his business. His business is all about the exterior protection of your home, from roofing to gutters to siding to windows. He works He works on all of those with expert skill, but we always lean heavily into his roofing expertise because, I mean, first of all, that's where everything starts. If you don't have if your roof is not sound, nothing else really matters. I mean, let's face it. You have to have a solid roof. He is a GAF Master Elite Installer. He's out there humbly getting 5-star reviews from basically everybody.
Yes.
I mean, he was showing us some of his statistics when we were at the home show about a month ago. He is one of the top rated roofers in the city or in the region. Really, he is outstanding. This is what he does. He's always 5 stars with good housekeeping as well, and he likes GAF products because they are always at the cutting edge of roofing technology. And we really mean it. You don't think of technology being involved with a shingle. It seems very basic, but every part of it is well thought out, and which create roofing systems. It makes your roofs run cooler, which is hugely important. The cooler the roofing system runs, the longer it's going to last. In fact, these last so long that they offer lifetime transferable warranties. Jay is also a former insurance agent, which is hugely important because
oh my gosh, yes,
there may be issues. Allan and I both have roofs because of this expertise. You may have damage to your roof that's covered by your homeowner's insurance, and that is a big deal. That's a big difference in price, whether you're going to pay for this yourself or it's covered by your homeowner's insurance. However, that's a very difficult process to navigate, and Jay actually makes the process fun. He's your advocate for that situation. Give Jay a call. He'll come over. He'll examine it, see if there's a path forward, and if there is, boy, is that an exciting prospect, having your roof replaced. And if not, there's also he also has financing, or maybe you just need a roof repair. He's going to let you know in any case whatever your roofing needs are. And he always brings a great optimism and excitement to every job that he's on. So he takes something that should be that is kind of a problem in your life and makes it a fun and exciting experience. So give Jay a call. He always wants you to call him directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Max, let's roll, man.
And now, great moments in building history.
Well, Max, you brought this one to us. This is interesting. And for once, I pronounced it correctly, Coober Pedy.
And I'd like to preface this by telling you what the name actually means.
Oh, yeah. What does it mean?
It comes from an Aboriginal term, Coober Pedy, meaning the white man's hole.
Okay. Well, Australia is not for a place to live for the faint of heart, especially down there in the outback. I know that Coober Pedy, I thought they said, is about an 8-hour drive to the closest town. Is that right, man? I mean, this place is in the middle of nowhere.
Halfway
this looks
between,
like Mad Max territory.
Yeah, this is halfway between Adelaide and Alice Springs, and Alice Springs is in the middle.
They show people flying in, and they say it's like flying into Mars. There's nothing. It's brown and desolate. It looks a lot
like Arizona.
Yeah.
And you see these things that look like giant anthills, and you also see these holes that may or may not be 100 feet deep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, Max, do you want to tee this up? I mean, you did do the, you did bring this to us, so.
Well, let's go back to the land of Coober Pedy. What made Coober Pedy the way it is today is because long ago there were oil. It used to be underwater, and as a result, silicon solutions would be deposited into the ground, which, in the layman's terms, would mean it was transformed into the valuable element known as opal.
Opal's for jewelry, right?
Opal is for jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
This land became the opal capital of the world, which attract a lot of prospectors. And, that's where the Aboriginal people got the term for the white man's holes, because everyone was mining, and people got the bright idea of, well, it's hot, and we want to try to avoid the heat, so why don't we just use what's already here and make our dwellings underground?
Yeah, Coober Pedy has about 2,500 to 3,000 residents, and they live underground.
Yes.
We should explain, though. Let's not get carried. This isn't like the whatever that movie, the Time Machine movie or whatever. Or
they're not living in caves.
These are like, if you can imagine, maybe a hill. Maybe the front of your house is open. It's got windows. It's got a door like any other home. But essentially, you are living underground. If you want to do a room addition, you carve it out.
Yes.
And it basically creates a temperature. They said in the winter or the summer, it's 71 degrees in there. No air conditioning, no heating. That's interesting to me.
Well, basically you're looking at compressed sedimentary rock.
Right.
When you're also looking at what are called opal runs. So you're looking for the cracks where basically water was fossilized. It's the silicas and that type of thing. And opals are a very soft, precious mineral. And they lie in these substrates all throughout this area. And there's all different kinds of opals. And the quote-unquote rainbow or jelly opal is very famous in the Coober Pedy area. So here's the fun part. So you dug the original mine shaft, right?
Right.
So then you just kind of got down about 20 feet and you started your excavation so that you've got plenty of protection above you. You're not worried about a cave-in.
See, that's what I'd be worried about is a cave-in.
Well, so then you begin carving out, the amount of space that you need to do your mining. And, well, you made it a 10 by 20 square.
Right.
Well, there you go. Now you got a living room.
Yeah.
And now if you want a doorway to go to a bedroom, well, you just kind of basically carve yourself out a doorway and off you go.
Yeah.
And I will say, too, that the one advantage to Coober Pedy is the fact that not only is there a lack of moisture, which makes underground dwellings less likely to, vulnerable to like fungus or whatever, because there are certain underground dwellings, like for example in Derin Kuyu, which is in Cappadocia in Turkey, which might be a little bit more wet, so to say. But Coober Pedy has that advantage of having a rock that is dry as a bone, and not only that, but the rock is also very easy to scrape and manipulate. You could literally just take a pocket knife and just scrape away.
Yeah, and I mean, plus you don't want your house to flood if so
right.
But the thing that's interesting, because I was watching a little bit of a documentary about Coober Pedy. They were saying that I guess the opals, depending on the shape, the more colorful they are, the more valuable. But you could literally do a room addition and fund the entire thing with all the opals you find in there, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I mean,
there is the
not
legend,
a bad deal.
There is the legend of the old boy that was making his mother-in-law a bedroom and found the biggest opal ever found. While carving the bedroom. And of course, he made a point in the television interview of pointing out that his mother-in-law will never let him live that down.
Right.
That you only found that because of me. So. Now, you talk about let's immediately tie this into DIY because you really got to think about your project.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you are worried about a lot of issues. Now, as Max said, water is not an issue. If you were trying to live in a cave in East Tennessee, water management would be like issue number 1.
Sure.
In this particular case, desiccation, being dry. It's just dry.
Yeah.
Plain out and simple. It's just dry. So in many cases, you're actually looking at having to add water to make it a little more comfortable for humans.
It's very arid there. Yeah, they said last year they recorded temperatures of 126 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, who'd want to...
it's like living in Death Valley.
Yeah.
But if you're an opal miner and you're that level of gambler, this is a great place to stake out your claims and live in your claim.
Right.
And,
that's what people did back in the day. Yeah.
Just be careful when you're making a renovation, because there have been instances in Coober Pedy where people are adding an addition and whoops, we accidentally caved in part of the neighbor's place.
Oh, yeah. You drill through into the neighbor's house.
Yeah, you got to be, again, planning. My word of the week is planning. You got to have an idea of what you're doing and where you're going.
When I first heard, when Max first told me about this and I started looking at videos and pictures and everything, I was stunned because you're picturing, okay, this must look like the Flintstones or something, but it doesn't. They have hotels, they have a church, they have homes, they have businesses.
They have a full museum.
They have museums, they have opal. I mean, people go on vacation there and things like that, but it's really nice dwellings in there. You wouldn't think so, but.
And I want to kind of tee this up, but they're actually having great incentives to be extremely eco-friendly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. we'll talk about that when we come back. It's pretty interesting community, Coober Pedy. We're going to continue talking about that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You're making a plan while I'm being a man, just winging it.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Okay, I try not to wing it, but I can't lie, Allan. Every now and again I do. And we'll come back.
I think the Coober Pedians often wing it.
They might, it's hot. They give it a good excuse. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking in our Great Moments in Building History about a really unusual community in the outback of Australia. This place is in the middle of nowhere. It's called Coober Pedy, P-E-D-Y, and it's basically it started off. It's noteworthy because it really is the opal capital of the world, and as a result, so back in the day, I guess this went back to the 1800s. They, people would, just like the gold rush, they came and they were digging for opals, and just to provide shelter for themselves, they dug some caves or, more or less dug their own shelters into the hills. And they found that even if it was 120 degrees outside, it was really comfortable inside. Or if it was really cold in the winter, it stayed. And it said, maybe we could create an underground community here. And so now there's 2,500 to 3,000 residents. They have everything. We were talking about, they have churches, hotels, homes, businesses. It's really an interesting thing, and we don't want you to think that you go down some mine shaft and you're living hundreds of feet underground. Really, you're living, part of your home might even be exposed to the surface.
That's correct.
You carve in. One thing, though, I was listening to some different documentaries. They said not everybody could probably handle living there. They said it is, when you're in your bedroom, it is just dead silent. It is silent. If the power goes out, it is so dark you can't see. That's... personally, me, I have to have a little noise going on when I'm trying to sleep.
Let's talk about the power going out, because Coober Pedy is not on any form of power grid.
Well, that was that was another thing. You were talking about how they're pretty eco-friendly, right, Max?
They were they actually have been very sustainable. Australia is actually one of the best places in the world for solar panels,
right?
And they are rife with them. Not only that, but also wind turbines. And
yeah.
And so originally, before the green technologies kind of got caught up, basically you were hoping you could afford enough diesel.
Right.
Keep your generators running.
Yeah,
well, you're trying to
point.
mine. You're trying to, keep in mind, this isn't a museum piece. This is an active community that is actively mining.
Yeah, they're still digging for opal. It is the opal capital of the world.
This is an active, it's kind of like when people go to New Orleans, it's kind of like, I don't think you understand. The French Quarter's not an attraction. People live there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So don't be screaming at 3 in the morning.
It's not a Disney attraction.
Right.
It's, people live there, and this is just, you're visiting. They get like 150,000 tourists a year in a 3,000 person community.
And like we said, it's 8 hour. It's an 8 hour drive to the nearest town. This place, you better
you
bring
got
your
bussed
provisions.
in.
So
what has happened here is a little micro environment where the more green technology you can bring in that provides power, hot water, charges your tools, all of that type of thing, the better off life has gotten in Coober Pedy.
Yeah.
I kind of want to interject here, and I think that Coober Pedy itself kind of raises an interesting discussion of, is the future of home building going down rather than staying up? Because, the idea of things are getting, things are getting hotter around here. And, I just think we have to kind of second guess that. If the world is getting hotter and we go down under where, we don't have to use as much AC and we can conserve our electricity, is that where we should consider going in the future? And not only that, but what are the ramifications of living underground?
Yeah, I wondered about that because I'm thinking, okay, air circulation's got to be important, right? You can't just, you got to keep the air moving. However, if you're just moving air versus having to create, I don't know. There's probably a good trade-off because, I mean, you're using the natural environment to just cool the space or keep the space warm. But
well, you're
stagnant air is what I would think about. So,
well,
yeah.
you're again having to adapt to the actual environment you live in. For those of you listening outside of Memphis, Memphis is sort of towards the middle of the U.S. We're right on the Mississippi River, so we have a huge body of water right here next to us.
Mm-hmm.
And Memphis used to be a pretty terrible swamp.
Right. And we're
so-
still technically an earthquake zone.
And we're an earthquake zone.
I'm not moving underground, Max.
We also have, just to the west of us, we have a lot of sand. Just underneath us, we're at the beginning of what's called the clay, which stretches from us all the way over through Georgia. And so the soil here is very thick and heavy. So, Max, to answer your question, I live in an over and under. Half of my house is below ground. Half of my house is above ground.
Really, and most of the country have basements, which is something, I grew up, we had a basement. Everybody in Chicago had a basement. Here, we don't have a whole lot of basements.
Well, that's because we have a giant river.
Right.
So from us all the way down through New Orleans, you have a lot of subterranean water. And by subterranean water, I mean 5 feet down, 10 feet down.
Right.
Not just, 1,500 feet down as some kind of reservoir.
Yeah.
So Coober Pedy is dealing with mostly sandstone, very soft rock, but a very arid, very, very arid area. So they're dealing with desiccation. And desiccation is a different problem because in Memphis, we worry about clay expanding and putting pressure on our walls.
Yeah.
If you go to West Texas, where I'm originally from, you get desiccation where the soil actually will pull away from your foundation.
Because it's so dry, it's just
So,
shrinking. Yeah.
Max, as you just said, as the climate is going to shift, is Memphis going to get wetter? We're going to get hotter? We're going to get, drier? What we don't know. So congratulations. Areas like this, like Coober Pedy, become very important because they're giving us a micro snapshot of what can be done in extremophile environments.
Yeah.
And not only that, I do have to wonder in an area like Coober Pedy is where do you get a lot of your water resources in an area that's so arid? Is it kind of like drilling for oil where you have to go way down under, or is it there's certain surface level water?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or oasis. Where's the nearest oasis in an area like this?
Yeah, where are they getting their water? I don't think I looked that up. Maybe it's well water. Yeah, they must have to dig. I think the whole thing with Coober Pedy is obviously just because it's the opal capital of the world, that was enough enticement to get people to trade off, the heat and the cold for...
We'll think about where we get our water later.
Right.
Actually, they have their water piped in from 25 kilometers away. Is the actual closest water source for them.
Okay. That's not bad. I mean, when I lived in San Diego, we got our water from the Colorado River, so it came hundreds of miles to get to us.
So Coober Pedy is pretty darn arid.
And you also wonder, too, if there is any water below, if it's actually very pure because it passes through all this stone.
Who knows?
Or is it, full of something else?
Yeah.
Because, that is a big problem, especially we start picking on Kentucky.
Right.
If you have water percolating through a coal field, that water's not drinkable.
No.
It's not usable. So, again, different parts of the country, different parts of the world, you wind up with some really interesting obstacles to overcome.
I think Max makes a good observation, though. Maybe there's places that in the past we would never have thought of moving there, or but maybe by incorporating a principle like this, where maybe it's partly subterranean, or you use just basically the natural environment to keep cool or to keep warm.
Maybe the hobbits have it right.
The hobbits know their stuff, man. Yeah.
You can't argue with it. It's a nice looking house.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to learn more, Coober Pedy is very easy to find on the internet. You're going to, like I said, Coober, and then Pedy, Pedy.
And it's 2 words, not 1.
2 words. But check it out. It's a really interesting, rabbit hole to go down. And we would love to know if anybody's ever been to Coober. Hey, you said we have listeners in Australia.
We do.
Alan,
we need to hear from them. Yeah.
Yeah. If you've been to Coober, I think a lot of people do go there for
like 150,000 people a year.
Yeah. Okay.
3,000 person community. You are outnumbered by tourists.
Okay, cool. All right, well, let's shift gears and let's get to our must-have item of the week. I think I brought this in once before, but sometimes when you reuse this, an item, you bring it in, and I'm holding this up to the camera. I think I'm on camera with this. So, Allan, tell people what I'm holding up, please.
You got a nice little, it was about an 8 or 10 inch bar clamp.
Yeah, so a bar clamp, folks. It's interesting. If you hold it like I'm holding it this way, it almost looks like a combination of the letter F and the letter G. But it's basically, if you can imagine a flat bar, it's about 1/4 of an inch wide by about an inch across. It's pretty rigid. A bar clamp is interesting because there's a sliding. In fact, you can probably hear this. So, hear that? You can hear the sliding mechanism. It's a bar clamp could conceivably be 50 feet long. It's just however long you use. If you have a bar and you have a sliding adjuster, but this one is portable. And for me, Allan, this is more or less like an extra set of hands.
Yes.
This is something that's super handy. Maybe you've got like 2x4s to screw together, and they're in a position where you have to hold one in place very exactly. Well, you just put a bar clamp on there, screw it in, and take it off. So,
are there bar clamps? I think I raised this before in another episode. Are there bar clamps that combine the idea of a bar clamp with a caliper? Because I feel like that'd be a golden opportunity.
Oh, yes. Several.
Yeah.
I've seen numerous.
These are cool, too, because, and then there's some, they're called a pipe clamp. Instead of a bar, it runs along a pipe,
right.
But it's the same idea. It's like you have a fixed point at the end, and then you have this adjusting little, and I use this a lot in woodworking. In fact, when I built my table, that I posted here about a year ago, I used bar clamps are great. I had a 3-foot bar clamps, and you get 4 or 5 of those, and you gently snug those up, and man, they provide a lot of torque. In fact, you have to be careful with bar clamps. This one has nice padded edges because these will tighten so hard you'll dig into the wood.
Yeah.
Or they'll leave a little round footprint on them. But bar clamps are cheap. I think this one is about $8 or $9, and they're very handy. And like we said, it's like an extra set of hands. So, well, Allan, this is going to be interesting. When we come back, speaking of DIY, we're going to talk about some of the logistical issues that you want to consider with your DIY projects. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is what the holidays are all about. 3 buddies sitting around chewing gum.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
By the way, happy Easter.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Max has been talking all about National Pencil Day, but yeah, that's the best way to celebrate Easter. Sit around with your friends and chew gum.
Well, that works.
Pretty lame, actually. But
I
anyway.
would say something about rabbits, but everybody would misconstrue.
Exactly.
Enjoy your chocolate Easter bunny.
Absolutely. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. Yeah, we do tend to get bogged down on some of these little side holidays that Max brings us, forgetting obviously the important holidays. So,
rubber is a form of gum, and so that's the connection there.
Okay,
sure.
I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and the distracting Max over there behind the glass. There's just enough time to give us a quick call or a text at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And a big thank you to one of our listeners, Patrick, who's giving us some pretty good advice, giving me some pretty good pointers about tackling this horrible clog that I've got somewhere down in the drain underneath my sink downstairs. But Allan, you in our text, in our show prep that we were working on, you were talking about the logistics of DIY projects, the logistic of home improvement projects, and I think that's that's something we don't necessarily lean into very much, but it's a pretty important factor in all of these. So,
I get called in on a lot of jobs that somebody else began, or
when are you going to change your phone number? You get calls I get, I just get,
I just get those calls.
Yeah.
And, I always find it funny because, my running gag is that, my truck is like the Joker starter kit.
Yeah. Oh,
because the weird assortment of tools, angles, supplies, and stuff that I have to carry, because every job I go to is somehow or another completely unlike where I just was 10 minutes ago. So,
Good point.
1 minute I'm moving a garden and I need a wrecking bar to get the cinder blocks up out of the ground. And the next one I'm, I need a trenching shovel so I can track down electrical wires. The next one, I'm going to need a ladder so I can get up and see what kind of damage the raccoon did to your soffit.
Right.
Just crazy stuff. And it hit me that really every person lining up right now, because it's spring cleaning. I'm watching people everywhere. I was at a big box store yesterday, and people were just loading vehicles.
Right.
They got mulch, they got lumber, you can tell the project is on.
Oh, yeah.
And, the bad part is you see them pulling back in 30 minutes later because they forgot something.
Right.
Or all right, people, when you begin a project, sit down for just an extra minute or two. And, Max, I'm going to call you back again and pencil it out a little bit and kind of like, all right, so we're going to put in a fire pit. Okay, well, is it going to fit where you're going to put it? What are you going to line it with? How do you want to put it? How do you want to present it? And better yet, oh my gosh, please do not forget in every one of your projects, how do you clean it up?
Yeah.
How do you clean up after it? How do you maintain it? We're going to put in a fish pond. Well, those things got to be cleaned, right?
Right.
No, they don't. Yeah, they do. Or they turn into a nasty, nasty mess of how do you clean it? How do you, ask all these questions up front, because Joe, you and I run into this all the time. I saw the perfect sink. I'm going to design my new counter for this sink. And then 6 months from now, that sink's been discontinued.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead, Max.
I'm not trying to sound cynical here, and this might be kind of building off what you're saying here, Allan. But is there certain hard truths that certain people have to kind of recognize, like as DIYers? Like, just because you want something to be a part of your house doesn't mean that it should. For example, maybe your house isn't the most conducive for fill in the blank, like your fire pit or this particular expansive garden or this type of sink.
Well, a lot of people don't consider certain things. And the number one thing people don't consider, and I'm going to pick on the South a little bit, is how much distance you need between that barbecue pit and your house.
Yeah.
Do not fire up the barbecue pit under the overhang. I don't care how much you don't want to get sprinkled on if the rain comes. Get the fire away from the house. And I'm quoting a friend of mine that works for the fire department. He tells me all the time the amount of crazy that they see with people in their barbecue pits.
I bet, because that's serious business.
Because,
here.
it started to rain, but we want a barbecue, so we drug it into the carport.
Right.
And it's under, like, oh my gosh, you guys.
You're filling up the...
Don't do this.
You switch your mediums.
You touched on something that I wanted to mention, because, folks, if you've listened to Tool Talk for a while, that about a year and a half ago, we remodeled our entire kitchen. And I was thinking about, when you're talking about logistics, about basically product availability.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
We're in the big box store all the time. And you might, for sink is a perfect example. We wanted this we got a really cool white farmhouse sink, and we bought it. And I think a good, those farmhouse sinks can run. They can start at $200 and go up to $1,500, depending on what you're getting it made out of. And there was one that we liked, and we just bought it. We're like, okay, we bought it. Well, I'm glad we did, because literally 2 weeks later, I was walking through the big box store, and that sink was now, gosh, it was like double the price. I think we got it on sale. It said like $175. It was up to almost $500. And I was like, wow. And it was sold out. And that happens a lot with plumbing things, too. You may think, oh, you know what? I really like that faucet. In 2 months, when we remodel the kitchen, I'll get that faucet.
I'll come
It may
back
be
and get
long
it.
gone.
Yeah.
It may be double the price. It may be discontinued or something. And how many times do we see that with appliances or faucets or any type of we tend to think that the big box store looks the exact same every time we come in, but man, products come and go and it's subtle. You don't always notice it, but if you see something, my recommendation would be if you really like an item and you know you're going to be remodeling or doing something, just buy it, save the receipt, don't take it out of the box. You could always change your mind and bring it back later, but you'll get it and you get it locked in before it disappears.
And I'm going to throw in an option. If you expire past the time you can take it back, I promise you that very worthy charities like Habitat for Humanity would be more than happy to have your item.
I mean,
More
hopefully
than
it does.
happy.
Yeah. But, I mean, usually you have about 90 days to take something back. But,
Well, and the other thing is, all right, you know what? It's kind of like being a doctor's office. Do not be afraid of a checklist.
No.
Do you have a flathead screwdriver before it's like one of these things when you read the instructions before you build this, make sure you got a flathead screwdriver, you got a drill, and you need a clamp. All right. Go get these things, lay them out, be a doctor for a minute, and have your utility tray ready to go.
I know like there's things like the IKEA stuff that tell you what sort of tools you need, but for the average DIYer, what's probably the most unanticipated tool that they could acquire beforehand before they actually realize that they need it?
A hex key.
Allen wrench. I was going
to Can you tell we've all been in? And get the
I was about to say, get yourself a cheap set of Allen wrenches.
Get you the little Allen wrench selection, and they'll have like the 10 most popular sizes on it. That is the tool you never see coming that you always wind up needing.
And I shouldn't say this because I'll be competing with you when these time comes around, but I will tell you, if you plan ahead, one of the best times to buy like an appliance or buy that serious purchase is the 4th of July weekend and Labor Day weekend. That's when they put these big sales out there. So if you can plan for that, you may I scored a oven there. I saved like $500 on an oven because so keep all that in mind. That's all part of the logistical angle of home improvement, man.
Sit down, have the family conversation, and plan your projects for the year.
Absolutely.
Do it now.
All right, well, another dynamic episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. It's time to get out of here, you guys. So on behalf of my buddy, Allan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.